The folded paper sat on the white tablecloth next to Bumpy's. Bourbon. He didn't see who put it there. 1 second the table was clear. The next, the note appeared like it had materialized from smoke. Bumpy Johnson was having dinner at Small's Paradise. Tuesday night, 7:30. The restaurant was half full, jazz quartet playing softly in the corner, the smell of fried chicken and collard greens thick in the air. Bumpy picked up the paper, unfolded it slowly. The handwriting was shaky, like whoever wrote it had trembling hands, or was terrified. They're going to kill the professor. There's a rat in the nest. You have 48 hours. A friend. Bumpy read it twice, folded it, slipped it into his jacket pocket. He didn't look around the restaurant, didn't call the waiter over, didn't react at all. He just stood up, left $40 on the table, and walked out into the Harlem night. Because Bumpy Johnson knew exactly who the professor was. Malcolm X. The man who'd broken with the Nation of Islam. The man who had a target on his back. The man who'd been getting death threats for months. And someone just told Bumpy there was a traitor in Malcolm's inner circle. 48 hours to find the rat. 48 hours to save Malcolm's life. The war had already started. Bumpy just didn't know it yet. Malcolm X had enemies everywhere in the early 1960s. The government watched him. White supremacists hated him. But the deadliest threat came from the people who used to call him brother, the Nation of Islam. Malcolm had been their star, their most charismatic speaker, the face of black Muslim power in America. But in 1964, he'd broken away. Started his own organization, spoke out against Elijah Muhammad, the nation's leader. The nation didn't forgive betrayal. Death threats came weekly. Phone calls in the middle of the night. Letters with detailed descriptions of how they'd kill him. His house firebombed while his family slept inside. Malcolm knew he was a marked man. So he went underground. Safe houses, rotating locations, trusted security team. But someone in that team wasn't who they claimed to be, and Bumpy Johnson had 48 hours to figure out who. Bumpy walked 3 blocks from Small's Paradise to a brownstone on 142nd Street. Knocked 3 times. Paused. Knocked twice more. The door opened. Junie Bird stood there, 67 years old, gray beard, eyes still sharp. "Boss?" "Wasn't expecting you tonight." "We got a problem." Bumpy walked inside. The apartment was small, clean. Maps of Harlem covering one wall. Telephone on a desk. Bumpy handed Junie the note. Junie read it. His jaw tightened. "Malcolm?" "Yeah." "Who sent this?" "Don't know, but they knew where to find me. Knew I'd understand. Knew I'd act." "What do you need?" Bumpy walked to the wall. Looked at the map. "I need eyes. Every corner, every block. I need to know who's been asking questions about Malcolm. Who's been watching his people. Who's been moving different. How long we got? 48 hours, maybe less." Junie picked up the phone. Started dialing. Within 20 minutes, he'd activated a network that had taken 20 years to build. Mr. Jenkins, the night porter at the Roosevelt Hotel. Maria Gonzalez, who ran the bodega on 125th Street. Tommy Washington, taxi driver who knew every face in Harlem. Reverend Marcus Price, who heard confessions and secrets at St. Philip's Church. The community was Bumpy's intelligence agency, and they were about to save Malcolm X's life. Wednesday morning, 9:00 a.m. Bumpy sat in the back of Tommy Washington's taxi, parked across from a 3-story brownstone on Convent Avenue. Malcolm's current safe house. Only 5 people knew about it. Malcolm, his wife Betty, and 3 security guards who rotated shifts. One of those guards was the rat. Bumpy watched the house. Quiet street, trees providing cover, good location, hard to attack, unless you knew exactly where it was. Tommy Washington leaned back from the driver's seat. "Boss, I got something. Talk. Yesterday afternoon I picked up a fare on 138th. 2 men, Nation of Islam. I could tell by the way they dressed. Bow ties, clean suits. They had me drive them past this block. 3 times, slow, looking at houses. They say anything. One of them pointed at this building, said, "That's the one." Other guy wrote down the address. Bumpy's jaw tightened. They planning reconnaissance or attack? Don't know, but they weren't tourists. At 10:15 a.m., Maria Gonzalez called Junie Bird. "There's a man been coming into my store, 3 days in a row, asking questions about the professor, wants to know who visits him. What time people come and go, offered me money to talk." "What did you tell him?" "Told him I don't know any professor, but I remembered his face. Light skin, scar above his left eye, wears a ring with NOI symbol. You see him today?" 20 minutes ago, bought cigarettes, asked again. By noon, Bumpy had 6 separate reports, all pointing to the same pattern. Nation of Islam members doing surveillance, asking questions, mapping routes. They were planning something. Soon. But Bumpy still didn't know who the inside man was. Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Reverend Price called. "Bumpy, you need to come to the church." "Why?" "Just come, alone." St. Philip's Church was empty, except for Reverend Price, standing at the altar. He was 71 years old, had baptized half of Harlem, married the other half, buried them when their time came. He saw everything, heard everything, forgot nothing. "Close the door," Price said. Bumpy did. Sunday morning, a young man came to confession. 27 years old. Name is James Turner. Works security for Malcolm. Bumpy went still. He confessed something that troubled me. Said he'd made a deal with the nation. Said they offered him $15,000 to give them information. Locations, schedules, security details. Did he take it? Price was quiet for a long moment. He wouldn't say directly, but guilt doesn't come from temptation. It comes from action. That boy has done something he can't take back. Why are you telling me this? Because Malcolm is a good man, because this community needs him alive, and because you're the only person I know who can stop what's coming. Bumpy looked at the Reverend. If I handle this my way, it won't be gentle. I'm not asking you to be gentle. I'm asking you to be effective. James Turner, 27 years old. Former Nation of Islam member who'd followed Malcolm when he split. Became one of his security guards 6 months ago. Or so everyone thought. Bumpy spent Wednesday evening gathering everything he could on James Turner. His apartment on 147th Street. His routine. His family. His debts. The picture came together quickly. James had a gambling problem. Owed money to bookies. The nation had approached him 2 months ago. Offered to clear his debts plus $15,000 cash. All he had to do was answer questions, provide information, be their eyes inside Malcolm's circle. James had said yes, and now the nation knew everything. The safe house location, Malcolm's schedule, the security rotation, the escape routes. They were planning to hit the house. Soon. Probably within 24 hours. Bumpy had to move Malcolm first. Wednesday night, 8:00 p.m. Bumpy walked up to Malcolm's safe house, knocked on the door using the code. A guard opened it. Not James Turner. Someone else. "Mr. Johnson, we weren't expecting you." "I need to see Malcolm. It's urgent." Malcolm X came to the door. 40 years old. Glasses, calm expression. But his eyes showed the weight of constant threat. "Bumpy, what's wrong? Walk with me." They went outside, stood on the porch. Bumpy spoke quietly. "Someone sold your location. The nation knows you're here. They're planning to hit this house within 24 hours. Malcolm's face didn't change. He'd been expecting this for months. "Who's the source?" "Doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting you out. Tonight. My family, I'll move them too. Separate location, but you can't stay here. This house is compromised." Malcolm was quiet, then nodded. Where? I've got a place. Brownstone on Strivers Row. The owner owes me. No one knows about it except me and one other person I trust with my life. You'll be safe there while we handle this. Handle it how? You don't need to know that part. Malcolm studied Bumpy's face. You're going to kill someone. I'm going to protect you. The how is my business. I don't want blood on my hands, Bumpy. Even blood shed in my defense. Then it's good this is on my hands, not yours. By 10:00 p.m., Malcolm and his family were gone, moved through a basement tunnel that connected to the building next door. A car waited there. Driver Bumpy had known for 20 years. They were in the new safe house by 10:30. The Convent Avenue brownstone sat empty, lights on, shadows moving behind curtains created by Bumpy's men with cardboard cutouts. From the street, it looked occupied. It was a trap. Thursday, 11:45 p.m. 3 cars pulled up 2 blocks from Malcolm's safe house. 9 men got out. All Nation of Islam. All armed. All convinced they were about to complete a righteous execution. They walked toward the brownstone in groups of 3. Professional, coordinated. They'd done this before. The leader was a man named Kareem, 35 years old, senior enforcer for the nation. He'd killed 4 people that the police knew about. Probably more they didn't. He had the map James Turner had drawn. Knew which room Malcolm slept in. Knew the guard rotation. Knew the blind spots. This should be easy. They reached the house at 11:52 p.m. Kareem signaled. 2 men went around back. 4 approached the front. Kareem and 2 others stayed on the street as lookout. The men at the back door picked the lock. Quiet. Efficient. They slipped inside. 30 seconds later, lights inside the house went out. Kareem smiled. It was working. Then every light on the block came on at once. Spotlights from rooftops, car headlights, flashlights from windows. The street lit up like daytime. And Kareem saw them. 20 men, surrounding his position, all armed, all aimed at him and his crew. Bumpy Johnson stepped out of the shadows across the street. Looking for someone, Kareem. Kareem's hand went to his waistband. I wouldn't, Bumpy said calmly. You've got 20 guns on you. Even if you're fast, you're not that fast. The 2 men who'd gone inside the brownstone were pushed out by Junie Bird and Willie Jackson. Hands behind their heads. Kareem looked around, trapped, outnumbered, outplayed. Malcolm's not here, is he? Kareem said. No, he's somewhere safe. Somewhere you'll never find. And you're going to deliver a message for me. What message? Tell Elijah Muhammad that Malcolm X is under my protection now. Tell him that any attempt on Malcolm's life will be considered an attempt on mine. Tell him I don't care about nation business or religious disputes. I care about keeping peace in Harlem. And if Malcolm dies, there won't be peace. There'll be war. Understand? Kareem said nothing. I said, do you understand? Yeah, I understand. Good. Now get in your cars and drive back to your temple. Don't come back to this block. Don't ask questions about Malcolm. Don't even say his name, because next time I won't be this polite. Kareem and his men backed toward their cars, slowly, hands visible. They drove away. Bumpy watched until the taillights disappeared. Boss, Junie said, what about the rat? James Turner? Yeah, I know where to find him. Friday, 2:00 a.m. James Turner was walking home from a bar on Amsterdam Avenue, drunk, celebrating. He'd just collected his $15,000 from the nation. He didn't know the hit had failed, didn't know Malcolm was already moved, didn't know Bumpy Johnson was waiting for him. A van pulled up beside James. The side door opened. Willie Jackson and Claude Baptiste grabbed him, pulled him inside. James tried to scream. A hand covered his mouth. Don't, Willie said. You'll only make it worse. They drove to a warehouse on the west side. Empty building, no windows, no one around for 6 blocks. They dragged James inside. Bumpy was waiting. James's eyes went wide. "Mr. Johnson, I can explain—" "Sit down." They sat him in a chair, hands tied behind his back. Bumpy pulled up another chair, sat across from him, calm, like they were having coffee. "James Turner, 27 years old, former Nation of Islam, or so you claimed, worked security for Malcolm for 6 months, made $15,000 selling him out." I wasn't. "Don't lie to me, James. Reverend Price told me about your confession. My people tracked the Nation's surveillance back to you. We have proof. So don't waste my time lying." James started crying. "They were going to kill my family. I owed money. They said if I didn't cooperate, they offered you money and you took it. Let's not pretend this was coercion. You sold a man who's fighting for your people, for black freedom, for everything your grandparents prayed for. You sold him for $15,000. I'm sorry. God, I'm sorry." Bumpy leaned forward. "You know what Malcolm believes in, James? Nonviolence, peaceful resistance, turning the other cheek. He wouldn't want me to hurt you. He'd probably forgive you if he knew." James looked hopeful. "But I'm not Malcolm," Bumpy said. "And you didn't betray Malcolm. You betrayed Harlem. You endangered a man this community needs alive. And that requires consequences." Bumpy stood up, nodded to Willie. Willie and Claude grabbed James's right leg. "Wait. What are you—" The sound of bone breaking echoed through the warehouse. James screamed. "That's for the betrayal," Bumpy said calmly. They positioned his torso. Claude pulled back his fist, drove it into James's ribcage. Once, twice, 2 ribs cracked. James couldn't scream anymore, could barely breathe. "Those are so you remember," Bumpy said. "Every time you take a breath, every time you try to sleep, every time you think about what you did, you'll feel those ribs, and you'll remember that you sold your soul for money." Bumpy crouched down, looked James in the eye. "You're going to leave Harlem tonight. You're going to take your $15,000 and disappear. I don't care where. Jersey, Connecticut. Hell, go to California. But if I ever see your face in Harlem again, if I ever hear your name again, I won't stop at broken bones. Do you understand me?" James nodded, tears and snot running down his face. "Do you understand me?" "Yes," James gasped. "Good." They cut the ropes, dragged him to the van, drove him to St. Luke's Hospital, dumped him at the emergency entrance. Willie pinned a note to James's shirt before they left. "Traitor, do not treat him kindly. BJ." Friday afternoon. Bumpy sat in the back room at Small's Paradise, the same table where he'd found the note 2 days ago. Malcolm X walked in. "Bumpy." "Malcolm, you're safe." "Thanks to you, I heard what happened last night, heard you confronted the Nation's men. Had to send a message. And James Turner?" Bumpy was quiet. "Bumpy, what did you do?" "What needed to be done? He's alive. He'll heal, but he won't betray anyone again." Malcolm sat down, took off his glasses, rubbed his eyes. "I don't condone violence, Bumpy. You know that. I know. But I'm alive because of you. My family is safe because of you. So I won't lecture you about methods. I'll just say thank you." They sat in silence for a moment. "There's something else," Malcolm said. "The note. The one that warned you. Do you know who sent it?" Bumpy reached into his jacket, pulled out the paper, looked at it one more time. Then he pulled out a lighter, set it on fire, watched it burn in the ashtray. "Yeah, I know." 6 hours earlier, before the hospital, before James Turner, Bumpy had made a phone call. A man answered on the 3rd ring. Young voice, nervous. "Mr. Johnson?" "This is Bumpy. I wanted to make sure the professor was safe." "He's safe, thanks to you." The young man was quiet. Then, "I couldn't let them kill him. Malcolm taught me to read when I was 12. He was the first person who told me I was worth something. I couldn't. Even if it means betraying the nation, I couldn't let them kill him. What's your name, son? I can't tell you that. If the nation finds out I warned you. They won't. I burned the note. As far as anyone knows, I figured it out on my own. Your secret's safe. Thank you, Mr. Johnson. No, thank you. You saved a good man's life. That takes courage. The young man was crying now. I just wanted to do the right thing. You did. Now stay safe, stay quiet. And if you ever need help, you know how to reach me. Bumpy hung up. He never learned the young man's name, never tried to find out. Some heroes don't need recognition. They just need to know they made a difference. Malcolm X lived for 2 more years after that night. He kept speaking, kept organizing, kept fighting for black freedom and human rights. On February 21st, 1965, the Nation of Islam finally got to him, shot him 16 times while he was giving a speech at the Audubon Ballroom. Bumpy Johnson was in the audience that day. Couldn't stop it, couldn't save him this time. At Malcolm's funeral, Bumpy stood in the back, didn't speak, didn't draw attention to himself. But as they lowered the casket, Bumpy whispered something only he could hear. I gave you 2 more years, brother. Hope you use them well. The story of the note, the infiltrator, the 48 hours that saved Malcolm's life. It never became public. Malcolm never knew how close he'd come to dying that week in the early 1960s. But in Harlem, people knew. The community that had provided the intelligence, the network that had saved one of their greatest leaders. They understood something the government never did, something the Nation of Islam never did. Real security doesn't come from guns, it comes from information, from people who care, from communities that protect their own. James Turner was found in Newark 3 years later, still limping, still holding his ribs when he breathed, working at a factory, living alone. Someone asked him once why he left New York. He didn't answer, just touched his leg, winced, and changed the subject. The young man who wrote the note stayed with the Nation of Islam for 2 more years, then left quietly. No explanation, no drama. He moved to Chicago, became a teacher, spent 40 years educating black children, telling them about Malcolm X, about courage, about doing the right thing even when it costs everything. He never told anyone he'd saved Malcolm's life that week. Some secrets you take to the grave. August 3rd, 1965. Bumpy Johnson sat at his usual table at Small's Paradise, dinner alone, bourbon and ribs. The waiter brought his check, but under the check was a folded piece of paper. Bumpy's hand froze. He unfolded it slowly. Thank you for protecting the professor. He gave me 2 more years to learn from him. That was everything. Your friend. Bumpy looked around the restaurant. Crowded. Dozens of faces. Any one of them could have left the note. He folded it, put it in his pocket next to his heart, and smiled. Because that's what Harlem was. A community that protected its own, that saved its heroes, that understood power didn't come from violence. It came from information, from caring, from people willing to risk everything to do what's right. Malcolm X taught nonviolence. Bumpy Johnson protected Malcolm with intelligence. And somewhere in Harlem, a young man with shaking hands had written a note that changed history. If this story moved you, subscribe for more untold legends of how Harlem protected its greatest leaders. Drop a like if you understand that information saves more lives than weapons. Share this with someone who knows that real heroes work in silence. What would you have done with that note? Let me know in the comments below.